talk about Republicans in Mississippi and the love of the Confederacy in Jim Crow days, we can go ahead and add North Carolina to that. There is no other state that has had racist Republicans leading than North Carolina. Let me say that again. Let me tell you something. All people from Malik's home state, Ross Barnett, all those races, they are celebrating in hell with what's happening in North Carolina. Same thing, George Wallace and all them bigots in Bull Connor in Alabama, they love Republicans in North Carolina. Let me tell you how foul Republicans are in North Carolina. Okay, so they lost their supermajority on November 6th. They still control the legislature, but they no longer have a supermajority. What I mean by a supermajority is they were passing laws and didn't have to talk to the Democrats. They could override the governor. Didn't even matter. Well, they lost supermajority. Now what these thugs are doing, they are trying to create, they want to do a special session beginning this week to force through the issue of the legislature in terms of voter suppression. Right, that's what they're trying to do. Now, this is the same law that got thrown out by the conservative Supreme Court. They then said, what the hell, we're going to put it on the ballot and pass it as a constitutional amendment. Yes, that's exactly what they did. That's what they did. Now, WSOT TV in Charlotte reports that half of the people in one county without the ID are African American. And guess how much it's going to cost to get one? $78. We call that, in the 60s, a poll tax. Yes. I want to bring in our next guest with Democracy North Carolina. They have been focused on this. Tomas Lopez, how you doing, Doc?
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
So, Democracy North Carolina, we've had you on before. Y'all have been doing an amazing job, along with the North Carolina NAACP, exposing the shameful things that have been happening in North Carolina by Republicans. And here's the piece. National Republicans say nothing. In fact, North Carolina for Republicans is the petri dish for voter suppression. So explain to the people this outrageous special session they're trying to ram this bill through.
Sure. So here's what folks need to know about North Carolina. This is a state that has seen over the past several years, not just when it comes to voter ID, but to a whole set of other issues that implicate our democracy, some of the worst ideas that are affecting real voters. So in 2013, the state passed a law that people here call the monster voting law, which included one of the strictest voter ID requirements in the country, reductions to early voting, the elimination of same-day registration, and the elimination of the ability for 16 and 17-year-olds to register to vote ahead of time before they turn 18. All of those things were overturned in 2016 by a U.S. Court of Appeals decision that said that the law that was in place then actually targeted African Americans with what it called almost surgical precision. So we had the law, that law was overturned, and then this year there was a constitutional amendment placed on voters' ballots that provided for a very broad idea of a voter ID law that passed by a narrower margin than was predicted originally by folks who supported it. And now we're in this session where there has been a proposal put forward, and at least the first proposal we've seen reads almost exactly like the 2016 law that was rejected.
Okay, so the constitutional amendment, did it pass or fail?
Constitutional amendment passed. But what the constitutional amendment says is that somebody has to show some form of photo ID when they go to vote. It doesn't say they have to show what was shown under the prior law that was rejected by the courts, and it actually even says that there may be exceptions. Now, we oppose this amendment. We oppose voter ID as something that discriminates against voters, keeps real eligible voters from actually being able to cast ballots, and that track record exists not just here but around the country. But that amendment passed, and now what they're trying to do is pass legislation that would implement that amendment, and what they're doing is putting effectively the old law back in place.
And so, again, this is Republicans in North Carolina. Are we talking about the law where the federal court said that was a laser-like focus on black people?
This proposal that's been put forward reads a lot like that law.
So, just for folks who are watching to understand, this is why I call out Republicans, because here's the piece. If you're doing right, you're Republican, that's fine. But this is the same thing happening in Georgia, where they had a law where they were struck down by the federal courts, and the legislature said, okay, we're going to give Brian Kemp the authority. They then passed it as a state law in Georgia, which then gave Brian Kemp the opportunity to purge voters and target voters. This is the heinous stuff that Republicans in North Carolina are doing. And Thomas, for people who also don't understand, I don't think they even realize the totality of this. How y'all have been fighting this, how Republicans have been abusing the law, raping the law, stripping authority from the governor to appoint people to commissions, how they completely just blew up the state election board, take the power out of the Democratic governor's hand, how they tried to literally rape the state Supreme Court from their authority as well, because the Democrats gained a 4-3 majority on that court. These are the kind of atrocious tactics Republicans have been doing in North Carolina, and Republicans across the country have been studying what they're doing and implementing their own type of suppressive laws as well.
One of the things that we've seen in North Carolina over the past several years have been attempts to use the law, manipulate the law for partisan gain. We've seen it when it comes to the judiciary. We've seen it when it comes to the way our voting laws work, the way our Board of Elections is structured. And it even goes all the way back, if you really want to look at root causes here, that one of the things that we're fighting here in North Carolina, and it's true again in many states across the country, is really entrenched gerrymandering. So we've got some of the most distorted districts in the country. And when we talk about the things that we need to see change here at the state level, and again, in states across the country, it's the ways in which elected officials are drawing the lines to their own advantage. They're not listening to the public, and they're setting up the system at its root level to really perpetuate their own power.
So is this session taking place?
The session started just today. And one of the things that's really difficult is that we don't necessarily know what is going to happen.
So how long is this session?
Well, the session in North Carolina, the rules are quite flexible, and so the session will go as long as they say it's going. Now, as a functional matter, the new legislature comes into power January 1st, and the governor has to be given 10 days in order to veto anything. So we're looking at a window of about 4 weeks in which this legislature would have to put forward anything for it to actually stick.
Okay. Well, look, we're going to keep following this. I have been focused on North Carolina, what the Republicans have been doing there for the past several years. And also for everybody who's watching us right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope, understand this. All of these things that Republicans have been doing in North Carolina have all been the result of the election of Barack Hussein Obama as president in 2008. When they saw, and Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, when they saw, North Carolina used to have some of the lowest voter participation of any states. 2008, because of the work of repairs of the breach, as well as NAACP, North Carolina vaulted up that list. And Republicans in North Carolina said, oh, hell no, all these black folks are voting. We're about to change all of these laws. And they have been doing a systematic breakdown of the laws in North Carolina since 2008, correct or not?
North Carolina is a poster child for what we have seen across the country with states that have passed laws to make voting more difficult in lots of ways. That is through strict ID laws. That is through reductions to early voting. There used to be a time where election laws, voting access were a clearly nonpartisan issue. Our organization is nonpartisan. We're not affiliated with any political party. Now these have become deeply divisive tools by which politicians are trying to entrench their own power. That's been really troubling, and in no place has that been more troubling than here in North Carolina.
Thomas Lopez, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.